Well, welcome. Good evening, gentlemen. Good to see you. Happy to see you in person again for the foreseeable future, hopefully. I'm just waiting for 6 o'clock and then we'll start bang on. Good to go. Okay, it's 6 p.m. and I'll call this meeting of the public meeting for the planning department to order at 6 p.m. Any declaration of interest or general nature thereof. Does anybody have an interest to declare at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to the purpose of the meeting. SR-09121 Planning Report. Application for zoning bylaw amendment, file number Z 2021-011-835 Elliott Lane. Before we take any information for that, I'll read the planning in public meeting introduction, which is personal information collected at this public hearing is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making a decision on this matter. All names, addresses, opinions, and comments are collected and form part of the minutes which are available to the public. Questions regarding this collection should be forwarded to the Director of Planning. The purpose of public meetings is to present planning applications in a public forum as required by the Planning Act. Following presentations by the applicant or staff, council members will be afforded an opportunity to ask questions for clarification or for further information. The meeting will then be open to the public for comments and questions. When you speak, please provide your name and address for recording in the minutes. All comments should be directed to the chair of the meeting. The applicant will be provided an opportunity to address the public questions once all members of the public have made their submissions. No decisions are made at the public meetings concerning applications unless otherwise noted. The public meeting is held to gather public opinion. If a person or a public body would have an ability to appeal the decision of the council to the local planning appeal tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the township before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. So with that, we'll go forward with the planning report. Madam Planner, would you like to come forward and give us a synopsis, and then we'll go forward from there?
Thank you. Through you, this is an application for zoning amendment for the property located at 835 Elliott Lane. The application is required because the property has split zoning on it. So the property was previously rezoned to a site-specific rural zone a number of years ago, prior to the comprehensive zoning bylaw that's currently in effect. In the new comprehensive zoning bylaw, the actual boundaries of the zone weren't transcribed the same way that they were originally approved. However, based on further review, we've also identified that the structure on the property that was to be legalized through the original zoning is located closer to the waterfront than the original zoning relief allowed for. So this zoning amendment is required to address the zoning on the property and accurately locate the floodplain zoning, to address site-specific setbacks to allow the property to be redeveloped. If you could scroll down a little bit more in the report to show the existing zoning map. So there's the subject property, one more down. This is the existing zoning map. So what you can see at the back, the dark area is the rural special exception 20 zone. Above that, you can see the extent of the floodplain zoning. The Conservation Authority has confirmed that the floodplain zoning doesn't take up that much of the property, given that it's a higher elevation above the water. So the proposed amendment would correct that, as well as creating new site-specific provisions to address the proposed redevelopment of the property. There has been public input received in response to the notice of public application. With this, it's questions around the size and scale of development on the lot. Some of the comments are with respect to other property standards matters that staff could address through other means if necessary, so they don't relate directly to the zoning application. This application is in front of council this evening only for public meeting, given that it's still currently under review and there's some details to be worked through with the Conservation Authority and staff to finalize the actual layout and what would be requested through the zoning amendment. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Madam Planner. Councillor Olkey, please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Madam Planner, on one of the observations, they say this is a heritage site. Is it in fact a designated heritage site?
Through you, no, it's not a designated heritage property. I believe what that's in reference to is the fact that it's in proximity to the Rideau Canal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Olkey. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Fody?
Excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship, through you to our director. That property, I didn't see it in person, don't need to at this point. Is that the way it appears? Like the property could be moved away from the shoreline to build? Like, is there any natural obstructions like rock or such that would prohibit that?
I haven't been on the site to identify if there are topographic constraints. There are some significant topographic elevations at the front of the property, but I haven't seen the property as a whole at this point.
Okay.
That being said, there is an existing structure on the property that doesn't meet current setbacks, so there are certain legal non-conforming rights related to that structure. But again, the official plan does recommend that any additional new development be set back as far as possible from the floodplain or slope line to accommodate new development. So those are a number of considerations that are still under review.
Thank you. Further, if I may, that's what first struck me when I looked at this application is the amount of land away from the water. And if we're making special exemptions to allow people to build closer to the water when in fact there's other options, I would want to see all the other options. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fody. Further comments or questions for the planner? I don't see any hands going up. Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor, if you'd like to go ahead.
Sorry, at one time.
Can you use your mic, please? Sorry, so that people can.
At one point, there was a fish sanctuary just around the corner. Is that still there?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay,
It's not there.
it's not
I
anymore.
don't think so. Okay. Interesting comment. Thank you. Can't.
There was a fish hatchery or sanctuary in Pierce's Flow, but it's been discontinued, although it's still a good place to fish.
No doubt it's a good place to fish. I guess my major concern when I first saw this application come forward and speaking with the planner was in regards to the floodplain mapping, because one of the challenges I think we face with floodplain mapping is that it's generally accurate, but not always. So I'm encouraged that the CRCA is coming forward to correct the mapping error that is there based on the elevations that are present, because it has a lot of effects on a property, not just from a building standpoint, financing and other challenges that come forward, because if they think you're in a floodplain, it's a problem. But I too would like to know more about where they specifically want to build this larger structure, especially since there is such a large amount of land. Obviously, people want to be as close to the water as possible, but as long as we're not going any closer than the existing structure is, then I think it's something we can definitely consider, but more details needed. Go ahead, Councillor Olkey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Madam Planner, are you able to put up the topographic map? Because that would perhaps clarify for some people what the
That it?
No, that's the air photo, but there's a significant difference in grade elevation from the water up to the property. The grade at the edge of the property is significantly higher than the water.
Okay.
The Conservation Authority is not concerned with the floodplain, which is directly along the shoreline on this property. What we need to work with the Conservation Authority on is the setback from the top of the slope. So this Conservation Authority has identified elevations along the front of the property, along the waterfront side, and a required 6-meter setback from the edge of that location to make sure that any new development is on a stable slope with enough setback that erosion hazard isn't a concern.
Fair enough. Thank you for that additional information. Any further comments or questions? We have some attendees from the public, so I will take questions from the public at this point in time. If you'd like to, please raise your hand so that I can recognize you, and we will unmute you at this time. Is there anyone who would like to speak from the attendees? I'm not seeing any hands go up. Oh, Ms. Stapleton, no, that is the applicant, correct? Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Ed Hand, Nancy's husband, and
Oh, yes.
just to address the question about why we want to put the house where it is right now, where the cottage is, because if you go back about 10 feet behind that cottage, you've got a rock ridge that rises, and then if you put it another 50 feet back, you're going to have to clear out all the trees that are in there.
And
just
the
to put-
rock cliff.
and the rock cliff. We don't want to excavate. So what we wanted to do is put it where the cottage is right now, and it would run along the rock where we had parking and the driveway, which is already set there. So very few trees would have to come out of that site, and it also would not impact the visual or to change very much the visual impact of putting up a new structure there, because it's about the same height and nothing in front really gets cut down.
And we also had a person from the Cataraqui Conservation Authority come to the site and look, because we were kind of shocked to find it was floodplain considering it's 2 stories above the water. And she had absolutely no problem, as you mentioned, about the floodplain. She just wanted, because of erosion, a 2-meter setback on the north face, which we have redone the site plan. I just got it from the architect, and we've redone the site plan to move the house the 2 meters that the Conservation Authority wants back.
Lovely, thank you. Are there any further questions for the applicants while we have them on the line? Seeing, Councillor Foti, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the applicants. When you say move it 2 meters back which direction or from which direction?
Okay, Nancy speaking. From the north face, if you look at the plans that we have in the house plans, I think it's the north elevation is where the Conservation Authority recommended it be moved back 2 meters because from where the existing structure is right there, just 2 meters back from the north elevation, because that's where there could possibly be chance of erosion. Not likely because it's granite, but just to be safe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that's fairly clear based on that comment. Any further comment or question in regards to the application? Go ahead, Councillor Gorell.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, to Planning Department. I see in a letter here from a concerned resident, it says Elliott Lane is a privately owned road. Is that, do we know that to be the case? And would that have any bearing on a decision going forward? I bring that up. I know near where I live, I have a private road, and I don't know what effect that would have on someone building on that private road without access. Thank you.
Thank you, through you. So the fact that it's named Lane is that it is a private roadway. It would be a road or street by name if it wasn't private. So it is a private laneway. There is an existing building on it. One of the requirements of the zoning bylaw is that there be direct access, legal access to a lane, which has direct access to a public roadway. So this would meet the requirement of that under the zoning bylaw to allow the property to be developed. The challenge with developing on private lanes is just that they are private. And so the township doesn't have any role in terms of regulating the maintenance and care of that private laneway. So if there's an enshrined access to a property on a private laneway, it's a civil matter in terms of the residents that front on that lane and have access through that lane.
And just to follow up, so therefore it's not in the township purview from a planning point of view, but a deed or something would supply access through on a private road. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it'd be up to the deed and so on, up to the property, about the property and so on. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, how many other residents are on that roadway?
I don't know off the top of my head. There's a number of other. lots that
Miss
do have
Stapleton
frontage on
has her
that.
hand up.
Oh.
Maybe Miss Stapleton, can you, we're gonna unmute you. And then you can answer the question. Do you have an idea of how many people are on the private laneway?
Boy, growing up there, there was probably about 5 to 8 cottages down below, which I think is around similar. I could be wrong. I haven't been down that area in a while. I do know the owner of the road because my father used to own the property with the road, and he passed away a couple of years ago, and the house was sold to Alex, who I've been in contact with. I asked him about road payments. I wanted to make sure I let him know what the plans were. And we're actually working on having a road committee for the area for all the cottagers and people full-time. There's quite a few full-time houses there as well. Probably not more than, I'd say, 15 max. But we are planning a road committee to all get on the same page about payments and how to look after the road. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Go ahead, follow up, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, sorry, just a quick follow-up. I guess my question is that these other houses were built on a private road. Was there complaints about having the road fixed?
That would be a question to the applicant because we don't get notified as a municipality unless it wasn't included in the correspondence, I don't think.
Well, no, I guess I'm just saying they're getting a bit of hassle about private road and fixing it when they go in to build their house, but everybody else built their house,
Yeah,
and I'm sure they didn't get grief.
yeah.
So,
Well, I think the proposed suggestion from Ms. Stapleton is that they're creating a road committee to avoid that in the future so that everybody's on the same page and the communication is there. I think that would address it going forward, but go ahead, Councillor Jameson.
You wrote through your worship, Deputy Mayor, being the proud resident of a private road, road associations are what they are, sometimes very challenging. But the reality is that if everybody gets together, it does work. And we have found when new construction's coming in and heavy trucks and all that kind of thing that affect our common road, we have found most people will help offset the cost of the damage if that's where you're going with your comments. But generally, what I'm learning from our operations director is that these roads are going to have to be to a higher standard, these lanes, because if they're going to apply for our road grant program, they've got to be able to accept fire vehicles and ambulances and everything else going down the road. So while the township doesn't have control over those private roads, if they are going to get road grants, then it's going to actually change how we approach managing our private roads. As I'm saying that as a resident, not as a counselor. Our road happens to be in good condition. We're ready for the ambulance anytime it comes for me. But other roads may not be quite in that condition. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicants? Nancy, is there anything else you need to add to the conversation or were you done?
I'm done unless you have any other questions. I'd be glad to, having grown up there, I know a bit about the area and whatnot. I just retired and wanted to kind of get back there in my later years.
I think that's it for all of our questions, and I don't see any other hands up as far as the attendees are concerned to ask questions. Oh, I have one that popped up from Kimberly Stacy. Can you unmute yourself? There we go. Go ahead.
We live at, or we have a cottage at 831 Elliott Lane, and it's right beside the Stapletons. And we have no issue. We're actually looking forward to having permanent residents on both sides for security purposes.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Wilson has his hand up. Mr. Wilson, we'll unmute you, or you can unmute yourself. There we go.
Hi there. We're across Pierce's Flow at 806 Point Lane. We too have no objection and also look forward to seeing some people there.
Excellent. Thank you for the input. Any further comments or questions before we wrap this meeting up? And no other hands have come up. So I will thank all the attendees for their comments, their questions, and their answers. And we will refer this back to the planning department, who will do further investigation and bring back the final words. So seeing that, I have a motion by Councillor Fody and seconded by Councillor Jameson that the public meeting adjourn. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed,